I'm going to tell a little story on myself today. But before I do, let me read a verse or two from Philippians Chapter 2. In this beautiful section, before the Apostle Paul discusses the humility of Christ and his self-humbling, he says, "Therefore, if there's any consolation in Christ, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any affection and mercy, fulfill my joy by being like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind. Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem other better than himself." Many years ago, when I was a young preacher, I was out in the province of Saskatchewan in Western Canada. And I was having a week of Bible teaching, and it was a very serious subject. And there was an older man. After every message, he would come to the back and he would crack jokes. And I like a good sense of humor, but it was just kind of wearisome to me. And when he called me up one day and said he wanted to take me out for lunch, I'm ashamed to tell you, but I thought to myself, this would be the perfect opportunity to straighten this fellow out. Well, he pulled up at the curb in this old, rusted-out Mercury, big boat of a thing. And I went out and got in the car, and he said, "I'd like you to meet my family first before we have lunch." I thought, well, I'll wait a bit. We went to see his son, who was not unkindly, was a vegetable in an old folks' home. He got up early every morning, went in, bathed his son, clothed his son, fed his son. We didn't get to see his wife. She had died a year or two before. We didn't get to see his other son. He was in jail for kiting checks. But we did go out into the countryside to a little ramshackle farm where his daughter lived with her 3 boys, whose husband had run off with some young thing and abandoned her. She was trying to hold this little farm together, and she just put her head on the table and sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. You can probably guess I didn't straighten the brother out. He was just trying to hang on. If he didn't crack a joke, he would probably dissolve in tears. We so greatly misjudge people, at least I do. And sometimes we look at people, and we envy them. But we wouldn't envy them if we really knew their lives. We'd probably pray for them. And here the Apostle Paul says, fulfill my joy. It's the joy of mature Christianity to see God's people thinking the best of others, not the worst. Trying to understand that most of us are just trying to hang in there. It's a tough world. There's an enemy against God's people, and we need to stand arm in arm with one another. Find ways to encourage one another daily, instead of being so quick to judge and to criticize. The fact is that every heart has its heartaches. Every home has its shadows. So may God help us to be a little more thoughtful and to esteem others better than ourselves. Now, we might think, well, so maybe I'm not the greatest person. Maybe in my humble thinking, I'm saying, well, maybe I'm a 3 out of 10, but there are some 1s and 2s, aren't there? But the fact is that if I think the best of others, and I know something of the worst of my own heart, it shouldn't be too hard to esteem others better than myself. This is the heart of Christ, the heart of a servant, the heart of a child of God who loves with the love of Christ, the consolation of Christ, the comfort of love, the fellowship of the Spirit, and affection and mercy.